أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير. الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور. الذي خلق 7 سماوات طباقا ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور ثم ارجع البصر كرتين ينقلب إليك البصر خاسئا وهو حسير. ولقد زينا السماء الدنيا بمصابيح وجعلناها رجوما للشياطين وأعتدنا لهم عذاب السعير. وللذين كفروا بربهم عذاب جهنم وبئس المصير. إذا ألقوا فيها سمعوا لها شهيقا وهي تفور تكاد تميز من الغيظ كلما ألقي فيها فوج سألهم خزنتها ألم يأتكم نذير. قالوا بلى قد جاءنا نذير فكذبنا وقلنا ما نزل الله من شيء إن أنتم إلا في ضلال كبير. وقالوا لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير. فاعترفوا بذنبهم فسحقا لأصحاب السعير. إن الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير. وأسروا قولكم أو اجهروا به إنه عليم بذات الصدور. ألا يعلم من خلق وهو اللطيف الخبير. هو الذي جعل لكم الأرض ذلولا فامشوا في مناكبها وكلوا من رزقه وإليه النشور أأمنتم من في السماء أن يخسف بكم الأرض فإذا هي تمور أم أمنتم من في السماء أن يرسل عليكم حاصبا فستعلمون كيف نذير ولقد كذب الذين من قبلهم فكيف كان نكير أولم يروا إلى الطير فوقهم صافات ويقبضن ما يمسكهن إلا الرحمن إنه بكل شيء بصير أمن هذا الذي هو جند لكم ينصركم من دون الرحمن إن الكافرون إلا في غرور أمن هذا الذي يرزقكم إن أمسك رزقه بل لجوا في عتو ونفور أفمن يمشي مكبا على وجهه أهدى أمن يمشي سويا على صراط مستقيم قل هو الذي أنشأكم وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون قل هو الذي ذرأكم في الأرض وإليه تحشرون ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين قل إنما العلم عند الله وإنما أنا نذير مبين فلما رأوه زلفة سيئت وجوه الذين كفروا وقيل هذا الذي كنتم به تدعون قل أرأيتم إن أهلكني الله ومن معي أو رحمنا فمن يجير الكافرين من عذاب أليم قل هو الرحمن آمنا به وعليه توكلنا فستعلمون من هو في ضلال مبين قل أرأيتم إن أصبح ماؤكم غورا فمن يأتيكم بماء معين صدق الله مولانا العلي العظيم وصدق رسوله الصادق الأمين محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين الشاكرين الحامدين العابدين التائبين وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة على رسول الله وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وعجل فرجهم سيما بقية الله في الأرضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. Inshallah, we'll continue with our reading and reflections on Dua 44 from As-Sahifat As-Sajjadiyah. We began by looking at the concept of thankfulness and gratitude last night as we explored that first line from the Imam. We'll quickly review and move on to the next lines. Alhamdulillah alladhi hadana lihamdihi wa ja'alana min ahlihi linakuna li ihsanihi min ash-shakirin wa liyajziyana ala dhalika jazaa al-muhsinin. So the first praise that we're giving to Allah, that all praise belongs to Him, is first for that He guided us to giving His praise. And second, that He made us from amongst His people, from amongst His nations, from amongst His followers. And for the purposes that we may become of the thankful, of those who express gratitude. And as a result of that, that we may be rewarded or recompensed the reward that is given to those who are the good doers. So we spoke about gratitude last night, what it means to be grateful. We spoke about thinking about how is it that we're supposed to give thanks to Allah? What is it that we're supposed to give thanks to Allah for? And finally, we said, we reflected on how the act of giving gratitude is really something that enriches ourselves. It enhances our way of life, and it allows us to approximate our lifestyle to one that really gives us a sense of happiness and satisfaction. As the Quran speaks, he or she who gives thanks, they are only giving thanks for his or her own good. So that obligation, that edict that has come is one that is constructed for our own wellness, for our own goodness. We also want to point out, as we ended last night, that the Quran has this basic principle, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you should be thankful, then we will increase for you. And how that offers us a point of inquiry into the blessings that God has given us until now, and whether we have utilized them in ways that is actually shows our gratitude and our thankfulness. And if we have done that, then that becomes a reason for God to increase those blessings, those resources, those opportunities for us. Sometimes we find ourselves in positions that we ask for something and God responds a different way. That itself becomes an opportunity for us to demonstrate to Allah, but more so to ourselves, that we can show appreciation for the things that God has given us, and from that we can then build to receive more things and do justice to them. As we said, being thankful is to utilize that resource in its proper usage. If a person has a spoon, with the spoon they're supposed to scoop up their food and eat. With that, they're not supposed to attack another person. With a knife, they're supposed to cut their fruits and their vegetables or their meats. They're not supposed to attack other people's. So if I'm given a knife in life and I really want a spoon or a fork, if I'm using the knife accurately and correctly, I'm giving thanks for it, then Allah provides the spoon and the fork for me too. But if I take the knife and out of the frustration I do things with it that it's not intended for, then I've demonstrated that I'm not mature enough or I'm not ready enough to handle the other blessing that will come. So that opens a myriad of opportunities for reflection. These are individually for each and every one of us. We look, what opportunity has God provided for us, and whether we're doing justice to that. And the second thing is, at a collective level, as a community level, or at a societal level, what are those things that have been made available to us, and how are we using them? Are we responding, and are we utilizing them appropriately, or are we abusing them? Which leads us to this next point on gratitude and in reading the dua. Let's transition to the second line now. وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الَّذِي حَبَانَا بِدِينِهِ. Right, so remember the points we made about gratitude, because it's going to serve as a point of transition. And praise further belongs to Allah, who showed us favor. How? Through guiding us to His religion, بِدِينِهِ. وَاخْتَصَّنَا بِمِلَّتِهِ. And through singling us out, or making exceptionally us a part of His creed, His nation. وَسَبَّلَنَا فِي سُبُلِ إِحْسَانِهِ. And that He directed us towards His paths of beneficence. Why? لِنَسْلُكَهَا بِمَنِّهِ إِلَىٰ رِضْوَانِهِ. So that we may tread those paths, travel upon those paths to His good pleasure. Okay, so again we're giving thanks to God, not just for instilling within us an attitude of gratitude, but also for showing us a path that we should tread in life. Right? So we speak about this, dear God, guide us to the straight path, to the right path, right? Implicit within that statement is that there are also perverse paths, right? There are paths that do not lead to the destination that we so desire. So in thinking about that issue of gratitude and the path that we have been put on, begs this question. How much have we understood the superiority of this path of life versus the other alternatives? Look, one of the challenges we face when trying to raise Muslim families and Muslim children, especially in a society like this, is not because Islam is such an irrational way of life that the person repels it naturally. It is because it is presented within a marketplace of other ways of living. If you only have one option, that option appeals to you because there's nothing else. It's either that or nothing. Sometimes when children are picky in their eating, this is from my experiences when I was younger, my mother would work hard and put some dinner on the table, and I'd say, you know what, I really like something else. And she would retort, if you're hungry, you'll eat it. And if you're not hungry, and if you don't eat it, that means you're not hungry. So this was my only option. Either I was going to eat that or I was going to go to sleep hungry. So, I'd work on myself, and whether I liked it or not, I would eat the food. And by the time I was satiated, I even forgot about the fact that I was making excuses. But if I go to a buffet, and there's 15 different things to choose from, maybe that one meal that's put in front of me doesn't appeal as much. Why? Because I have 14 other things to choose. When it comes to us kind of understanding the value of what Islam is and what God has given us through this way of life that we call Islam, how is it that we are orienting ourselves towards that assessment? See, if we come from backgrounds that the only thing that was presented to us is this way of living and this way of life, we accept because there's no alternative. Here, that's not the case. And especially in this day and age, it doesn't even matter where you are in the world anymore. It's such a globalized world that these diverse ways of living are almost ever present. So now it requires us to be a little bit more intentional in trying to understand why this way of life is truly more valuable and superior to others. And if I can be so bold, my observation is that for many of us, and myself included, I don't think I'm sold on the idea that an Islamic way of living in an expansive way is truly the superior one. Because if it is, then I really wouldn't be enticed by other things in life and the other kind of meals that are presented in the buffet of the marketplace of life. So in this part of the dua, the Imam is saying, oh Allah, praise belongs to you. I have already acknowledged that this way of life is better than the others. So me personally reading this, I can't say that with the same confidence. But what I can do, remember we said, what are we asking of God? What are we asking of ourselves? I have to start asking myself, really, what is it that makes this path of Islam superior to the other ways of living? So this calls for a journeying personally, and it calls for a journeying in the construction and the development of family. You and I are tasked, as much as we've been able to understand the religion and the utility that it provides and the fruit that it bears, to present that as attractively as possible to our children. I'm not here to point any fingers. I'm not here to say I'm better than you. I'm worse than all of you. But what I will say with confidence is that if our children are not attracted to living as a Muslim, and living as a Muslim doesn't necessarily mean growing a long beard and beating the chest, but if they're not convinced that this way of life is superior than a materialistic, nihilistic, capitalistic, narcissistic, hedonistic way of life, then you and I have failed to present that as the superior choice from all the other things at the buffet. See, in the presentation, right? In the presentation of what's there, we also need to be intentional and purposeful. Now, you may say Islam is the truth. It doesn't need any marketing. Sure, for the person who can see past the glitz and the glamour, the advertising, yeah, they can move past that. They can see this is a superior product, this is inferior. But for the vast majority of us, what do? We are susceptible to the powers of advertising and marketing, right? More money is spent sometimes not on the development of the product, but on the marketing of the product. Because if you and I can identify that, then we'll naturally kind of approximate ourselves towards that. It's familiar. I've seen it before. I know it. So I want it. It works. See, one of the challenges that we find ourselves is we've said Islam is the best. And if it's the best, then why waste time? Why waste money? Why waste effort to market it? Right? It's the best thing. If you know, you know. But the problem is that most of us don't know. And especially our younger people, they don't know. They think a life in pursuit of the things that are presented here as being successful and attainable, they think those things are better for them. They think they're sweeter for them. And that's why they put their time, their energy, and they're willing to sacrifice in the pursuit of that. But with Islam, we find not the same level of commitment. Your son or daughter will forego sleep, forego food, forego proximity to you, all sorts of different challenges in pursuit of education, in pursuit of a career. Tell me I'm wrong. We're all immigrants to this country. We came here for one reason or another. Either we were displaced and we can't live, so we had to come in pursuit of stability. Many of us also came for the pursuit of higher life opportunities, educational opportunities, career opportunities, whatever we want to call it. And in that pursuit, we sacrificed a lot. Sometimes more than we can put into words, more than anyone can appreciate, as many stories as we tell our children. When I was younger, this is what I did, this is what I had to do. But the point is not to say that if you value Islam, then you will not value these other things. It's like, how much are we committed to also the foregoing and the enduring of the difficulty and the pain for the value that the Islam provides? That's the central question. So the path that we are following, we have to ask honestly to ourselves, as us living in America right now, on what path are we following? Let's just bracket Sirat al-Mustaqim for a second. And let's look down and look ahead. What road am I traveling on right now? And towards what direction is it taking me? And we have to do this because if you've seen on these, you go to the airport sometimes, to get from one terminal to another is so far, you can't walk all the way. What do they provide for you? Yeah. You stand on it, it takes you, right? Because it takes too long for you to walk there. You're going to miss the flight. In life here, it's so fast-paced, they put those things for you. Whether you like it or not, you're paying attention or not, you're moving at an accelerated pace. After, a while, where am I going? What direction am I moving in? For what purpose? Here, the Imam is saying that praise belongs to you, that you put me on a path that first is superior to others, but also it's a path that works towards achieving your pleasure, the pleasure of God. So where is the pleasure of God found? I'm not arif. I don't know anything about spirituality or fun, so I can't speak to those levels and registers and stations of spirituality. But I'll say that at the level that I'm at, this low level that I'm at, we have to compare our life's journeys the plan that we've set for ourselves, the plan that has been dictated to us, the plan that is understood to be socially acceptable, the road to success that we all take for granted, is that one that gels with the pleasure of God. So let's break it down. Let's break it down. I mean, we don't have much time, but you all are so experienced in life and intelligent enough and rich with those diverse experiences that you know what we're talking about. What trajectory is the world heading in today? Right? I just read right before I came here, story. UN says that the trajectory, the planet is going to become inhabitable at some point, at a much sooner time that it should. At a dangerous rate, it's accelerating. What kind of a path is that? You take God out of the picture, that's crazy because it's self-destructive. How can we be living in a way that it's self-destructive? Now you may say, oh well, nothing lasts forever, right? كُلُّ مَا عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ. So everything is going to be destroyed, so will this earth and this universe. The speed of that is important though. All the signs that we're looking at show us that we live in a world that is rotten, right? And it's heading towards exposing the rot, the toxicity. And for us, the only method of salvation is to do what? If the ship is sinking, there's only a handful of life rafts, right? Get on one of those or get on top of the ship so you, at least if you're going to sink last. You can enjoy the little that remains. Maybe I'm being pessimistic, I don't know. That's my observation living in this country, in this day and age. They characterize it as a rat race. It is. It is. We're all trying to run faster than the other to get to a point that we can secure as much as we can from the materials of this world. And then we know we're going to die anyways, so we have to find a way to try and disperse that gives us some sort of momentary happiness. But at what cost? Right, the last 2 years we've experienced this pandemic, right? The restrictions that COVID-19 has brought, the great difficulty that it's brought. Look at the trajectories and the directions that humanity has moved in, right? The poor get poorer, right? The rich get richer. So there's already a defined structure. Whether there is a humanitarian calamity, whether there is widespread difficulty, the way the system is designed is that if you're higher up on that scale, then you will continue to accelerate. You will continue to progress. If you're lower, you will continue to go down and down unless you're able to pull yourself up. So the Quran is trying to get us to think about it, and so is the dua. It's drawing our attention to the ways of living that secure the pleasure of God. Now there needs to be some radical societal change, and that may not happen right now. It may not happen within our generation or the generation of our children. You may say the institution of higher education is rotten at its core, right? What makes one institution better than the other that I should fantasize about going there? And I should be so proud that my child goes there that I'll wear the, apparel and memorabilia of that to show other people. Who cares, right? But we do care, right? Even if we don't care about the idol that is the Ivy League schools, the great research schools, the tier 1 schools, we do care about the career prospects and opportunities that it opens. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. You can make $10 million a year. That doesn't make you any less religious or any more religious. But the point is, in treading that path, is the path one that is conducive to the pleasure of God? That's the basic question, right? So if we want to peel away the layers, we start have to asking ourselves, what is the bottom line to the contribution that I'm making in society, right? Let's say I've done everything right. I was a good student. I kept myself out of trouble. I went to a good school. I got a good job. I have a good career. And I work at a good company. On one side, I'm providing for my family. On one side, I can support my community. It allows me the flexibility to move, to do different things in the world. Okay, that's one side of it. What's the other side? In building this, what have I contributed to? What's the bottom line here? Right? It's first what we give up. So it's the opportunity cost. I had to hustle here so I couldn't do other things there. I had to not sleep so I could gain. I had to not spend enough time with my kids so I could gain. I had to not spend enough time with my community so I can earn. Fine. But in addition to that, we're also contributing to a different reality. And that different reality is one that the hegemon continues to expand its control and power. The rich and the wealthy continue, right? And the poor continue to get poorer. That itself is in direct contrast to the basic Islamic outlook. The basic Islamic outlook is the establishment of equilibrium, of equity. Not equality, but equity. So we have to think, even in our pursuit of trying to gain capital to do good with it, are we also perpetuating a system that's broken? That's the path we traverse. And at the end of life, we look back and say, what? Was it worth it or not? That's the basic question that we ask ourselves. We're choosing between things. None of them are ideal. But there has to be some sort of justification. God, I'm working for a wretched company, but I'm doing it to gain your pleasure because it allows me to do A, B, and C. If those three are not defined and justified, that's where you say, I'm not treading a path that God is pleased with. Are we really thinking about these questions? Are these the questions, the seeds we try to plant in the hearts and in the minds and in the souls of our younger people? Tell them, you can go to the best institution. But remember, you're not there to serve a system that cares nothing about justice and all it cares about is the continuation and the perpetuation of wealth for people who don't deserve it. That's the paradigm shift that needs to happen. And what's really important is that because of the globalized world that we live in, it's almost as if we serve as the role models and the leaders for the rest of the world that watches. You and I ended up here. Whether we wanted to or we didn't, whether it was our own kind of will or not, we ended up here. And we're provided opportunities more so than other people in the world. Fine. Now what do we do with that opportunity? Are we showing the rest of the world that, yes, really, the best place you could have ended up is here and what I'm doing right now? And if you want to win at life, you have to come and either join me or displace me. Or do we show them, despite the opportunity that we have and the social capital and growth that we have, we reject this reality. We repel this reality. We expose it as being artificial. These are two fundamental different things. We can work at the same company. We can have the same education. We can work the same hours. We can live in the same house. We can live in the same neighborhood. But those two people have two fundamentally different outlooks on life. One of them will continue to perpetuate the injustice that is rampant on this earth. The other one will be working to destroy or reform it from within. It's the second one, the person who is working and is surrounded by a world of the displeasures of God that is able to plant the seed and that seed blooms. That's the kind of the mission of the Muslim. That's our mission. That's our call. So the Imam is saying, Allah, praise belongs to you that you have selected me, right? You've made me special. You've provided me an opportunity that is unique. Okay, that translates to our socio-economic status for the most part. And you've made us Muslim, right? And in an understanding of Islam, that hopefully we're not using it to oppress other people, to dismiss other people, to be closed off. We don't have these prosperity gospels where we're trying to use the religion to better ourselves, right? None of that kind of stuff. And at the same time, of the opportunities that were provided, Allah, we know how to, in the midst of this destruction, in the midst of this injustice, we know how to plant the seed of justice and of hope. That's the call of Islam for us here. So this is not a call to go back to other countries. It's not a call to go back to the East. The same job exists there. The same mission exists there, but it's of a different kind. Here, we are trendsetters. When you are at the highest level of society and you turn your back and say, I don't need this. This means nothing to me, right? What does Imam Mahdi say? How does he look at the dunya? How does he look at the earth? Worthless. Worthless, right? If we get there and we have this same attitude, then people start thinking, whoa. First, they'll probably think there's something wrong with you. You have some sort of psychological mental problem. You have everything you ever wanted and you're not happy. You speak like this. And then after a while, they'll come to realize it's not. This is a facade, and you're exposing the facade that exists. That's when people start to pay attention. That's where true change and reform will happen. So this month is a month that we're thanking Allah. Thank you, Allah, for the opportunity of this month that you're opening the eyes and the ears, the mind and the heart and the soul to these things, right? And this month, if we're able to make these kind of discoveries, we have these epiphanies, we have this light clicks on. We can't even begin to understand the potential that we have as a collective here. If we wanted to, with Allah's support, this whole world could change overnight if people had the conviction and the commitment to these things. We have it. We just need the spark of inspiration. And for us, we're, I think, better situated than anyone and everyone else. Because we said, Alhamdulillah, alladhi habana bidinihi wa ikhtassana bimillati. We don't have to go search for answers. The answers are there. It's just for us to crack the books open, to have these conversations, to start reflecting, and begin to draft solutions and answers that we can provide for ourselves, our communities, and then extending that to society, inshallah. We'll end there. Tomorrow, inshallah, we'll continue. I ask if you will be attending, please take a moment to look at the dua, read ahead, bring your reflections. I'd love to be in conversation with you all, either during the presentation or after, inshallah. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu ala Rasulillah, wa ala alihi tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
Brothers, before you disperse for that, please recite a Surah Fatiha for the families of tonight's sponsors, Mr. and Mrs. Zaki Sadiq, Mr. and Mrs. Aziz Sadiq, and Mr. and Mrs. Ahmed Shami. Please recite the Surah Fatiha for the marumeen of their family. Bismillah. Bismillah. Salawat. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ghaib bhai? Azan. Jalali order the azan. Aye. You guys decide.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar walillahil hamd. Allahu akbar, Allah.